Let's get started introducing our speakers today. So, on my right, I have Cassandra Scott, who many of you probably already know Cassandra at different events at Xerocons and Roadshow. Cassandra is our head of bookkeeping and has been a mentor to many bookkeepers and accountants in the industry for a very long time, and has run her own practice as well. We also have Ethan from Ignition, and many of you probably also know Ethan as well. If you're an Ignition customer, you no doubt love Ignition. All the Ignition customers I know always seem to just love Ignition. And we've got Nicholas Shroom here from Syft, and I'm sure everyone's really excited to hear from Syft with the recent news about being acquired by Xero, and everyone's pretty keen to hear about how Syft reporting and analytics can help with their practice. So on the agenda today, and oh, sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm Justin Campbell. I'm a product expert here at ApprovalMax. Okay, so on the agenda today, we're going to talk about what's the meaning of smart automation, the benefits of strong workflows, financial controls, data-driven insights, and then we're going to come back to Cass to get some real life examples of using automation tools for your business. And we're not going to leave you empty-handed today. We're actually going to give you actionable tips for best practice of implementing automation in your business. And don't worry, we're not going to get off scot-free. You will have your chance to ask us questions. Um, 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 uh, your questions to us, and we'll do our best to answer them. All right, so first off, we'll start with a poll. So I'll bring that up now. So first question, where are you today from 1 to 5 for automation in your firm? So 5 being the highest. Okay, so we've got a lot of results pouring in here, which is fantastic. And people seem to be about in the mid zone. Got a couple of people who are willing to say 4. Not a single person has said 5 yet. So is there a single person who's really confident that you've nailed automation? We've got some people who are very manual, and we've got 2, but I'll end that. Looks like that's ended now. Okay, and I'll share those results with you guys so you can see all those results. All right. Okay, now we're going to ask another question, which is, which processes do you find the most challenging to automate? So accounts payable, accounts receivable, payments, reportings and analytics, practice management, or this is such a broad open question that you might also just want to put your answer. If your answer's not here, it's in the chat. Put your answer in the chat. So I'll launch that poll now. And okay, sorry guys, having a bit of I've got to stop sharing that. There we go. All right, you should all be seeing that now. So, all right, how are we going here? And we've got somebody's AI chatbot in here taking notes in the chat. Okay, so we've got
use of automation.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, a lot of people are doing automation in reporting and analytics and practice management. So that's actually 2 of the areas that we have experts in here. So I'll share those results. And yeah, so we've got a good mix. We've got about 35% on accounts payable. We've got 27% on accounts receivable, 21% on payments, and reporting and analytics, and then practice management. So to be honest, like that's pretty even spread, even spread across the different things. And just seeing if anyone's written anything in chat. So we've already got one vote indirectly for taking meeting notes. Oh, payroll and HR. The other for me was pay. Yeah, two people who have said payroll. And okay, that's great. All right, so oh, sorry, I just realized I haven't clicked on share result. Okay. All right. Well, I will stop sharing my screen. That way you can see us all clearly. And we'll go to our first area of discussion, which is the meaning of automation. So, Nicholas, I'll start with you. So let's go back to basics. What does smart automation mean to your organization, and what are your thoughts on this area in general?
So, Justin, automation's obviously been around for quite a while. It's been around a long time, and not all automation is a good automation in our view. You have instances where automations that are in place can actually end up creating inefficiencies or creating a whole long list of exception reports that don't get to the nitty-gritty of what the automation is meant to achieve. So on that, smart automation is something that should actually improve your processes. It should create efficiencies, and it should enable you to make better decision making by optimizing either your workflows or tailoring reporting, for example. So what does smart automation mean in 2024 today, nearly November 2024? We believe that smart automation is about either optimizing your existing processes or implementing automations that enable you to achieve those objectives. So in a reporting sense, we've got a lot of tools that we use and our customers use to automate their reporting on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis as they see fit. And in doing so, they save a lot of time that they aren't used to manually prepare their reports, and then they are also adding value to their clients. So there are simple steps to take in starting your automation journey or optimizing your automation journey. But the key takeaways with any automation is start small and know what you're trying to achieve.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's I really like your point about sort of with exception reports there. It's some automation I think can sort of bombard you to the point that you sort of switch off to it, and you want automation that helps you to kind of be more mindful in your work and not just something that sort of just happens in the background. And I mean, if it is something that can just run automatically, that's fine. But a lot of things still need that human to look at it. So, Ethan, might bring you in and ask your opinion on this, but maybe a bit more from like from a practice perspective and from an ignition perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if my background is flipped for all of you, but it looks like it's backwards for me, so hopefully not.
Looks fine
But
to us.
oh, great, fantastic. Well, hello everyone. Nice to see you all. Some familiar names in the attendees here today. To answer your question, Justin, I guess for us, we see a fair amount of just small inefficiencies, and we're predominantly dealing with practice owners, so bookkeeping businesses or accounting firms directly, rather than the broader sort of small business landscape out there. But for us, it's about those small sort of incremental wins that we can improve across the day, which add up to a really significant chunk of time, which impacts things like practice management and receivables and so on. So the whole premise behind designing our platform and what we're trying to achieve is get those little 5 to 10% wins in various areas. So whether it would be time that you spend invoicing a client, or time that it takes to deploy relevant tasks after you've signed on a new client, or all of these small things which at face value, oh yep, I can do that, I can tackle that, I'll do that after work. They do add up to a fair amount of time. And look, for us internally, it's something that we're always trying to optimize as well, just because it it comes in waves at all times. There are so many things to do. There's always a new email coming in or a new task to do, and you feel like you never get through the to-do list. But for me, I've just been finding this year as I can eliminate the little 1 to 2 percenters. And for me, it's actually the meeting note summary. We use Fellow rather than Fireflies or some of these others. But hey, it's a 5 minutes at the end of a meeting that you kind of get back that I don't have to now think about. I can focus on something else or go make another coffee if need be. So yeah, I think we're sort of moving away from the days of like the big silver bullet swings and this is going to save me hours to where can I just get these incremental changes and incremental improvements in my process to get more time back. That's really what we're seeing at the moment, Justin.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can the meeting thing really resonates with me. I do a lot of meetings, and the problem I have with the coffee side of things is I often leave myself enough time to make the coffee, but not enough time to drink the coffee. So the coffee ends up being just left at the side of my computer. But I've had many conversations with customers of yours over the years, and when I said that people love Ignition, it's really true because of that time they get back. And if they were to try to do what Ignition does with other systems, it would require so much more manual work that would become a real cost for their business. So yeah, everything you just said is really resonating. Okay, so now question for Kaz. How have you seen automation change in the accounting and bookkeeping space in the last year? So I'm really keen to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts on this.
Yeah, that's great. And I'd just like to break down a little bit of the word automation as well. And at the moment, I think automation is being seen as the 2024 buzzword. I'm going to show my age here because I started working in 1983. And in 1983, the work that we were doing for bookkeeping and those sorts of things, we were already starting to automate it. And it was in a very simple way, moving from, paper-based systems to things like carbon paper and, electronic typewriters. So the concept of automation isn't new. It's just that technology is enabling it to be implemented far more frequently and far more quickly than we have seen happen historically. And you can have a look back at all of the sort of technical changes over time, and you'll see the bell curves and what's happened in the last 50 years versus the last 500 years. But so I think when we're talking about automation, we need to keep in mind that it's not something new. It's just this continuous evolution of how we work within our practices, within the technology that's available to us, and work with the services that we provide to our clients. It's about being smart about choosing the technology and the systems and processes that provide you with value add to the automation. So, as Ethan said, what we're looking for is efficiencies, and it's picking the tools that provide you with those efficiencies to take you and continue to take you on your automation pathway, whether you're a practice owner, a business owner, a client, or, even just a person working from home, or, Joe Blow, whatever. It's not just related to business. It's now becoming part of everyday life in a way that we perhaps haven't acknowledged as strongly historically.
Right. Yeah, it's changed a lot. When I started in this industry 12 years ago, everyone was excited about bank feeds, and now people don't even think of that as being automation. They just take that for granted. But in saying that, I have meetings with people every day who are still manually entering bills into their accounting system. So
Yeah.
some of the things we take for granted are not necessarily that well known outside of the accounting industry. Okay, so we talked about the benefits of automation. Uh, there are a few key areas we see resonating with clients time to time. So, Nicholas, I'll go to you. Have you seen smart automation eliminate reporting errors? And what are you seeing resonating with clients of yours?
So at Syft, we've definitely seen automation reducing errors. I mean, reporting, as most of you will know, is typically being done on Excel or spreadsheets. And as an accountant myself, I do love a good spreadsheet, but there can be times when a spreadsheet is error prone. Sharing a spreadsheet can be difficult. I mean, many of you will be familiar with #ref errors when you share it to a colleague. So we have seen big improvements in automation and reporting. So, automation does things very well in adding up and doing calculations on existing data. So the immediate saving is on formulas and making sure that directions are correct. You haven't subtracted instead of added a number. So just from an accuracy perspective, we are a lot more comfortable with automated reporting because you can set something up, review it, and then you have consistency throughout the lifespan of your report. That's been a big saving for accountants and bookkeepers of ours. And they really have grasped the journey from moving out of an Excel-based environment and into an automated reporting environment where you can comment. We have a tool called Live Views. It generates a report for you and people can comment on this report instead of having to make manual changes in Excel. So there is certainly a place for spreadsheets, but the automated reporting from a P&L perspective, a forecasting perspective, the dashboarding view really enhances accuracy and saves a lot of time in preparing those reports. So that's where we've seen the biggest benefits from our clients.
Yeah, it's that the I mean, Excel is great, but it has a lot of potential to enter errors into things and people not realize that there's an error. So yes, if you can automate your analytics and the likelihood that a mistake happens is significantly reduced. So Ethan, with strong workflows is a bit of a buzz term at the moment, but what does it mean? What does it mean to you, you and your clients?
Strong workflows. Yeah, I think just going back to what we were talking about earlier about the incremental wins, I think at least for most of our customers, they're pretty aware of the volume of work that they're going to be doing across the year for any given client. It's largely consistent. Maybe not over the last couple of years, but generally speaking, it is a largely consistent repeating of work that's happening year over year. But yet we're still seeing, just to take a few examples, WIP and sort of work and debtor days amounting to 60 to 70 days for a lot of firms that we're speaking with. So a long time between completing the work or incurring the cost to having the money in your accounts. And I think that's all down to a number of small things. We'll have a discovery meeting with a client and it might take a couple of days to get back to them. And then there might be a couple of questions and then we've got to go and pick up the job and then put down the job. But then we have to go back and ask the client for different information or information in a different format. And then we pick it up again. And then we're trying to juggle two things at once. So it's a lot of the pick up, put down syndrome is kind of what we refer to it as. But a lot of those really small inefficiencies lead to, these sort of big gaps in efficiency for many of our customers. And so I guess what we are aiming to do is how do we enable people to spend as much time as possible on the highest value tasks, engaging with the clients, doing the client work, rather than the administration that sort of sits behind that. Now, we don't do everything practice management. We do a couple of key things pretty well. We're not trying to, as I said at the start, be the silver bullet that, is going to give you back 40 hours in your work week. But we think those sort of 2 to 3 hours that you would spend around workflow and task administration, around invoicing, around reconciliations, around chasing clients for payments, around getting cash faster into your bank account after completing work amounts to a pretty tangible impact. The other thing that I've seen and the feedback we're getting from customers regularly is that the automation itself sometimes is not so much the value, but just the prompting of different tools. And I love that all three of our solutions, like They have these inbuilt reminders and processes that sort of forces you to think about the next step in the process. So we have this conversation every day with, we'd be speaking to a bookkeeping firm. Oh, when's the last time you reviewed your pricing? Oh, I haven't done that in 3 or 4 years. I've been meaning to get to it. I really need to carve out time to do it. Okay, well, we don't do that work for you, but we prompt you to, hey, like, as a reminder, it's been a year since you re-engaged this client. Should you put up your fees at least in line with CPI or something like that? So I really like, and Syft has some of that as well with the reporting sort of frequency and automations there in terms of scheduling reports. So I think some of that is really helpful in a long-winded answer to your question, Justin, but hopefully that makes sense.
Oh no, there's a lot of value there, but I think what you said, the put down pickup terminology, I hadn't heard that before, but I'm very aware of the research around tasks switching, and the reason why people don't get things done, you don't get meaningful work done, is because of task switching. So if any of the tools here today can eliminate that need and allow people to kind of focus in like decent blocks of time on value creating work, that's really that's going to be a real game changer. I think maybe even a little bit more than what you were saying. Okay, so Cass, in your experience, what's the value of financial controls for organizations? Oh, you're muted,
I want to jump
sorry.
off mute.
Muted. It's all right. So strong financial controls from my perspective, it's about the processes and safeguards that you have in place to protect your business assets. And when we talk about business assets, we're not just talking necessarily about the financial assets, but also the physical assets of the business as well. So it's a holistic perspective when we're looking at that. It's about ensuring that you've got accurate financial reporting. It's a fraud prevention overview. So, we've got products like Syft, we've got products like Ignition, but if the data that you're utilizing when you're utilizing those tools is flawed because you haven't had good financial process management in place, then the outputs are going to be compromised as well. So it's about also building in, the checks and balances that are needed, things like separation of duties, which is often the most simple one, to allow you to do your reconciliations, your regular management reviews, and ensure that the quality of the data and the integrity of the data. So I think that they're two very separate perspectives there, because integrity, you can have high quality data that's really crap because somebody's been fraudulent about it, but you want the integrity of that data to be there as well. So, maintaining accountability and ensuring compliance with laws as well. So that's the other thing that we often don't always have at front of mind, is that the reason we want to have these management systems and processes in place isn't just about the business assets, but it's the other things that our data may be utilized for and the other stakeholders in our data, ensuring that we are doing as business owners what we need to be doing as well. Integrity and business stability are probably the two key outcomes of that. And I think it's interesting around your comments with workflows as well, Ethan. I talk to people regularly about workflows, and some of them can become so convoluted, where there are often much simpler ways to achieve the same outcomes by being a lot more smarter about what you do and how you go about doing it as well. So yeah, workflows are a bit of a passion project of mine at the moment.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that answer. I might just pick up one thing you said there, which is separation of duties. And we as accountants and bookkeepers, we can talk to clients all we want about separation of duties, and a lot of these other financial controls. And I think really where the value of ApprovalMax is to actually have a system where you have the automated workflows where pretty much you have no choice but to follow correct procedures around separation of duties, having an approval process for adding new suppliers to your accounting system, making sure that things are checked by the right people before they get approved. So by having all of those financial controls automated, the likelihood of them actually being followed, goes from, very low to close to 100%, which is what we're going for. All right, so let's now sort of change gears a bit and talk about the benefits of regular data-driven insights to understand risks in your financial management process. So a question to the group, which is, what are the benefits you've seen that regular data-driven insights bring to understanding risk and financial management process? How important is that? So I might start with Nicholas on this one.
Right, so Justin, I must apologize. My Wi-Fi dropped, so I might have missed some of the question, but I think I picked certain elements of it up. So in terms of data-driven insights and how important they are, the core and the most fundamental benefit of the insights you get from automation is visibility. And previously, prior to automation, or particularly in a reporting realm, you don't have visibility or easy visibility of your data. And the benefit it provides you is the ability to go and see what is trending how and identifying issues before they become problems. So it's critically important in my view. And that is one of the big benefits of automation in general, but particularly in the reporting space, you're able to highlight and identify trends. You're able to focus on key metrics as well and get an overview and snapshot of your business or your operation in a much quicker manner than you would have beforehand.
I think the interesting thing with that too, Nicholas, is historically a lot of business owners have been separate from their financial data. And they've done that because it's not been easy for them to get into the reports or the underlying transactional information. And often they've had, people within their organizations that have put up faux barriers to them doing that. But being able to surface that information in a really, really simple way, in a way that business owners can digest, is going to increase their financial literacy and give them the insights that maybe, get them asking those questions around what is actually going on in my business. And I think that's something that's really, really important these days, is business owners actually taking ownership of their data and having access to it in a way that they can consume.
Absolutely, and it's been one of our big missions is to simplify financial data and to achieve that objective. So we may try to make it as easy as possible for even the people who aren't in a typical finance role or deal with financial data on a daily basis. So surfacing, as you say, surfacing that data, and it's not about reinventing the wheel, as you said earlier in the chat. It's actually about bringing to the fore the core tenets of financial management and displaying that in a way that users find easy to manage and digest.
Very good.
Just as you were talking, I was tagged in a Google sheet with unreconciled items from October, and it's about 6 tabs and 300 lines in there. So I feel the pain of payables, and maybe need to do an ApprovalMax demo after this. But yeah, look, I think it's exactly that. That is filed away to the back of my Google Chrome tab list, which I will then tackle at some point. Probably after hours when I don't feel like doing it. So I think it's having the process there to follow. Otherwise, these sorts of things happen on the regular. But yeah, look for us, it's we're seeing particularly just in terms of process around pricing and billing at the moment. I think that's probably the biggest area of opportunity for like professional services and particularly where your time is your cost. With the cost of everything going up nowadays in the way that it is, having a process for, this is just maybe recency bias with a firm we were meeting with earlier today, where there's probably 4 people involved in the process of getting an invoice out to a client after a piece of work had been completed. And this firm was largely billing on completion of work. Sometimes they'd take a deposit up front, but it was largely time and cost on completion of finishing a job. And it would be sort of 3 to 4 weeks after the job is completed where the client would get the invoice, and then sort of, terms of 14-ish days beyond that, and not all clients would pay on time. So immediately there, you're talking, sort of close to 50 days between getting those funds in, and then there was a lack of control around like following up on those invoices as well. It sort of sit between the partner at the firm and the practice manager, or the client managers are sometimes doing it as well. It was a really sort of fluid thing, is how they described it to me, which made me shudder a little bit. But I feel like having a clear process for these things can really have tremendous impact on this. And the same goes for reporting, and same goes for payables workflows, right? As evidenced by my tagging into this Google sheet 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from a ApprovalMax side of things, I mean, data-driven insights, like we attach an audit report to every transaction that gets approved. So it's got the full history there of why something was approved. So if you ever needed to go back and look, it'd be just there. And whereas if you were doing the same thing by email or Google Sheets or what have you, it might work in the moment for, oh yeah, can we approve this? But if you need to find a month or so later to kind of go backwards and work out why something happened, you wouldn't be able to. But Cass, I just wanted to go to you. You've been working with businesses, and especially small businesses, for quite a while, and I'm sure in that time you've seen many cases of fraud or potential fraud that could have been prevented with automation controls. What are some good examples you can think of that that automation might have prevented?
Yeah, and I'm a huge fangirl of a good audit trail, Justin. So absolutely love that, because it protects my backside when we're doing work for clients. But look, most often fraud is committed by somebody that's close to or within a business. I know we hear a lot these days about cyber criminals and cyber fraud and invoice intercepts, but realistically, if you Google even, fraud cases, so much of it is actually committed by somebody within the practice or within the business. One that I came across actually a number of years ago was the person running the accounting file was changing the bank account details on the file so that when the clients were paying, they were paying into the bookkeeper's bank account. Really simple. So they were able to go in and edit an invoice template and actually change those. They had no payments automation process in place, so that wasn't locked down. There was no oversight. So this was the same person who was reconciling bank accounts, entering the invoices, making payments to suppliers, doing all of the data follow-up calls, all of those sorts of things. So there was no separation of duties around it. There was no second-tier review of everything that was being undertaken. But then you've got the business owner who was accepting at face value the information that was given by the individual. So, yep, it's all under control. So they never actually got in and looked at even a simple debtors ledger report, or, looked at bank account balances, or asked those questions about why is my balance sheet not reflecting more money in the bank, or why are my debtors so large, or why are my debtor days out? All of this sort of stuff could have been identified with smarter reporting tools and prevented by having smarter automation tools in play. So it was only actually identified when the client that I was working with, he kept saying to me, "You haven't paid this bill." I'm going, "Oh, absolutely, yes, we have, and here's all of the evidence." And we get onto the call to the supplier, and one day we actually got hold of the business owner instead of the accounts person on the phone, and they went, "What the?" And that's what started to unravel what had actually been occurring, because we were able to provide him very, very clear evidence that money had actually left the client's bank account. It just hadn't arrived in the business's bank account, and then started to unlock bank account numbers and all of those sorts of things. So, you know, systems and processes and automations, and they're all awesome things, but the human factor still needs to be part of that. And again, I go back to the comment about business owners having some oversight and responsibility. It's very easy to abrogate responsibility. And as a business owner myself, one of the things that we've stepped into is things like management liability insurance and cyber insurance as well. And you know, for Australian tax practitioners, bookkeeping, or BAS or tax agents, our requirements under TASA, you know, we've got to be hyper vigilant around that. But even in my own business, setting up management liability insurance, I was being asked questions by insurance companies about what is my separation of duties, who authorizes a payment, who enters the supplier bill into the system. And I actually had to fight really hard because I don't let my husband touch the bank account. He probably doesn't know how. That's another conversation for another day. But they were great questions to be asked. And that had the advantage of once I'd ask them or answer them correctly to reduce insurance premiums. So it's actually not just the intangible cost of what you might lose if this fraud and these breaches occur, but how can you actually save yourself money in a smart way by making sure you've got those processes? So I think, you know, if we hadn't been able to demonstrate to the insurer why we did things in a certain way, or hadn't been asked that question, and then we needed to make a claim against the policy, we may not have been able to claim against it for those sorts of events. So there's this whole cycle of things that you don't often realize sort of sits around the simplicity of just having checks and balances and controls to stop the fraud occurring in the first place. You'll never remove it completely. The smarter we get, the smarter the people are in terms of trying to breach it, but it does raise the bar and make things more difficult for them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like you said there would be a few things that could help, which is one, that they're actually checking, checking the bills that are getting paid, and that's where having, a multi-step approval process would have. Also, doing batch payment approvals could help with that. A big one is limiting who has access to Xero to begin with. So if something does happen, there's not a huge number of people who it could be. And then there's so those are all things that ApprovalMax helps with. But then there's things like the assurance dashboard in Xero, which allows you to see if somebody's changed a bank account detail against a contact, and if invoices are being backdated. And one thing we do in ApprovalMax is we can detect whether or not a bill has been changed after it's been approved, as well. So all of those things there are can all help. But there's also, like you said, a human element where these people are pretty clever, so you also need to take ownership of it and be on the ball as well. So we'll jump back to our slides, and before too long, we'll then do the Q&A. So I see we've already got a question come up. So all right, so let's do some tips to get you started with automation. Tip number one is talk to people to understand their pain points. So, really have a conversation with your clients about their business and to find out where their pain points are, and then you might be able to identify the right tools that can help with automation. Deeply understand the process and document it. So that's something I do whenever I'm talking with potential customers of ApprovalMax. Really it's usually accounts payable, really get to understand deeply what they do and all the little quirks around it, and then we can come up with a solution for them. And then map your process for integrating apps. So really, if you can write it out, either on paper or on a whiteboarding app to actually visually see what processes they're going through. And then take a step back and critically analyze your process. So I encounter a lot of processes that are unnecessarily complex. I think Cass said that at the beginning of the webinar. And then you get tested, and then you iterate. So you test, and then you iterate. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, I feel, to get it right the first time. Like you can, I think with all of the apps that are on this call today, you can often start kind of small, and then build it out as you go. And yeah, Cass just said, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Yeah, like in an ApprovalMax context, like I feel like people feel that they need to day one build like the perfect delegated financial authority. Well, and they don't. Like within I think a month or 6 weeks of using the product, you've got to pretty quickly work out and adjust anything that's not working the way you want it to. All right, so let's go to our next slide. Oh, okay. Oh, we've got another poll. Okay, so I'll fire up poll. Stop sharing that. Back. And so the third poll. All right, so the questions are you interested in learning more about ApprovalMax, Ignition, or Syft Analytics? And so we've got a good mix. Yep, so I'll just give you a bit more time on that, but pretty much lots of people are keen to hear from all of us here today. So I think that's it. People aren't answering anymore, so I'll end the poll. All right, and then next. Okay, and the next question is, how many staff does your company employ? So I've got a few sole operators here. We've got a few in the 2 to 5 range. Pretty much every group is representative, 6 to 10, 11 to 25, and we have quite a few in the 26 to 50 range. So quite a few larger organizations here, larger firms. All right, so I'll end that and I'll share that one. All right. Good. Okay, we're at the Q&A session. All right, so this is the fun part where we answer your questions.
There's a couple of good ones in there, Justin.
Yes. Okay. All right. So cool. Okay, I'll stop sharing that. Share results. There you go. And then Okay, so feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A area.
While you're having a look at that question, just sort of touching back in the implementation of automation and critical analysis of your process. One of the things that I've found incredibly valuable when having conversations with clients about the concept of automation and, you know, what does it do and how does it replace what they're currently doing is to ask the question, why do they do something? And really dive deep and not just accept the because that's the way we do it type answer, but try to extract from the client or whoever, even within your own practice, why do you currently do something and what is the value that it provides either to you or to your client or your stakeholders? And it's a really interesting question because I don't think a lot of people around process can always answer that. It's often legacy is why they do something in a certain way, and it's a bit like the Chinese whispers. It starts as one thing, it ends up as something else, but you don't know where it began at the beginning. But it's what you now do because that's what's been passed. So biggest question I ask clients when I'm looking at process is why do you do it and what are the advantages that it gives you?
Yeah, that's a great one. And I guess the thing is, I heard this on a different webinar not that long ago, which is that you can always put things back. So you can remove things, and then if you go, oh geez, bit like a Chesterton's fence, you can always go, oh, actually that was there for a reason. You can always put it back. Okay, so we had a question here. We use ApprovalMax for AP and AR, easy. That's great to hear. What about point of sale transactions? Credit cards? Do we submit purchase orders after the fact? These are usually spend money transactions. Okay, not so sure about the point of sale there. That might be where maybe some of your other tools could help you spot irregularities with point of sale transactions. But with the spend money side of things, we are going to build out the ability to handle receipts. And that's going to help with credit cards. So that's going to be part of ApprovalMax capture in the future. At the moment, you're best to handle them as bills for the time being, but we're going to give you functionality around spend monies.
There's
All
probably
right.
a bigger process to consider around that too, Justin, because if we're talking about point of sale transactions or credit card transactions, what is your practices or your business's internal policies around issuing of credit cards? Has the employee signed for the credit card and the conditions of use of the credit card? What are the authorities to begin with around spend management? Do they need to? And the question was POs after the fact. Is there a certain level when the PO for even for a credit card transaction needs to occur before the fact? So we're talking about a tech solution to the review with ApprovalMax, but don't forget when we're talking process, it's not just always the tech that's solution. You've actually got to have other things within your businesses that support the tech to begin with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, and then there's another AMAX question as well. Are order reports a main report that ApprovalMax produces? Is there other reporting functionalities available being considered? So yes, we have actually quite a powerful reporting engine. We have two types of reports. We have request reports and we have line item reports. So and they're very customizable. So you can pretty much filter them by whatever you need. We have a fraud detection report that you can run in there. You can also schedule them. So on a particular time and date, you can email it to whoever needs to get it. So we have a very powerful reporting. And then if you want to go really nerd out, we also have a integration with we have a public API. So you could feed data from ApprovalMax into a dashboard tool, and this is especially relevant if you have lots of ApprovalMax organizations. You could feed it in and build a dashboard where you can filter it by do whatever you want to do. Okay, Mark Griffiths has his hand up. Do you want to type your question in the Q&A if you haven't already? Okay, now, all right, do we have any other questions here? There is a big question from Erwin here, but I might give you a phone call because I think that's a very specific question about setting up your workflows in ApprovalMax, and we can just jump on Zoom and help you with that.
I think for the benefit of the audience though, Justin, that's actually a really great question because what we're looking at here is a more complex approvals matrix that's triggered by both dollar values, well, particularly dollar values as to who and where it goes for approval. So the fact that something like ApprovalMax can actually map out to that level, I think is really important. And we're talking
Yeah.
about, up to 4 or 5 different levels of approval depending on dollar value, and it could even be linked back to supplier or individual. It could skip people. It could mean more than one person needs to be involved in the process. So I don't know whether you want to share that in the chat so people can see how complex it can be and that ApprovalMax is actually a solution for that as well.
Yeah, I think people can. I'm not sure if. Oh, do I need to copy and paste it in the chat? People can't see the question.
No, I think you
I,
need to copy and paste into. I can do
Okay,
that if you
I'll
like.
do. Yeah, if you
I
don't
can do
mind.
that.
Yeah,
Here
that'd
we
be
go.
great. Yeah, so this is really yeah, about setting different levels, different levels based on financial amounts. And that's really easy to do. Whereas if you were relying on manual systems to do that, it would be it'd be a nightmare. Um, but we can also build. I had a call yesterday, and they do everything by supplier. That's the main determinant of who should be approving what, and so you can also build up an approval process around supplier, account code, tracking category and zero. There's many options there to do. And the great thing about the approval matrix in Zero is it's very visual. So setting it up and then changing it in the future is really easy. Whereas there's some other workflow tools that are just super confusing. Technically they could do all this stuff, but yeah, in practice, it'd be really hard to do. Now, another question was, are all reports emailed in Excel format? Can you get a PDF? Um, um, yeah, so you could get PDF or CSV with our reports. You did say payment summaries here. So that the yeah, so we wouldn't be doing payroll things, but for all your other bills and your batch payments and all of that, we can give you reports for that, no problem at all. Okay, I see chat. There's quite a few chats coming here. Okay. All right. So somebody's posted. Rachel's posted takeaways from the meeting. That's fantastic.
Rachel's otter
Um,
has summarized that very nicely for us,
yeah.
Justin.
Yeah, that's so we're having a real life demonstration here. All right, and I guess how are we going for time? So, Nicholas, was there anything you wanted to add from the conversation so far?
Nothing to add, Justin. Just to mention that, if anyone does want to give Syft a whirl, you can easily sign up and give it a bash and see how we can automate your reporting. You can see what it looks like, your dashboarding, your forecasting. It's a no obligation trial. You just jump onto the website. We do see, people enjoy our tool, and people find a lot of benefit for it, especially in the practice space. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me or any of our team members. And yeah, thank you for the time.
Thank you. And it was pointed out in the chat before that I mispronounced it. It's one of those situations where you've read a word for years and never heard it said aloud, and you realize you've been pronouncing it wrong like a fool for years. And sorry about that, people. Um, so, Ethan, how about some last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, thanks. Firstly, thanks for having us on. I think, yeah, look, if you've resonated with anything we've talked about, and particularly around the process piece that we discussed earlier, having something there for people to follow so that it's not bouncing between, whoever in the organization. I think that's what's top of mind for me at the moment. Having spoken or come off the back of a lot of meetings with firms recently, and particularly the processes around sort of internal controls, everything we've been talking about today, and then also the process of managing work and tasks and things to be done. So I think there's a huge area of opportunity there for everyone. But yeah, really appreciate the opportunity, Justin.
Oh, no, thank you, Ethan, thank you, Nicola, and honestly, I've only ever heard really great things about both Ignition and Syft. Like, I've been in this industry now for I think 12 years, and people just rave about both your products. So I definitely think if you get the opportunity to, and you're not already using one of these two products, have an opportunity to watch a demo and learn more about them. And yeah, Cass, thank you again so much. Was there any last thoughts from you today?
I just put the challenge out there to business owners or people within business that are sort of sitting there saying, oh, you know, I've got to take control of everything and it's only me that can actually do this. Just to, again, it goes back to that question why. And I was working with a bookkeeper only yesterday, and the conversation was about they do something because they thought that they were the only person that could do it. And when I said to them, well, no, you don't, you're not the person that necessarily needs to do that. There's some other checks and balances you can put in place to make sure it's correct, but you don't have to be totally responsible. It was just like you could see this whole weight go off of their shoulders. So I think often, you know, particularly in practices, sometimes the practice owners assume that everything's got to be held really, really tightly. Whereas these days there are smart tools out there that allow you to delegate the ability for things to be done by other people, but allow you to keep the control. But it takes it away from your desktop and, you know, the ever ending, I'm just completely consumed by works, by client, by emails, by phone calls. If you can get some of that work happening in an automated way with somebody else within your practice, that frees you up to actually be a little bit more focused on things like potentially looking at your financial reports and, you know, understanding the analytics and the data that's really relevant to you. So I challenge business owners to think about what can they let go in a structured and supported way using tech.
And that is a great note to end on. Use technology to allow you to delegate, but in a way that allows you to minimize the risk of doing so. So it's really about that combination of making things that are scalable, but at the same time reducing risk to your business. That's a really fantastic note to end on. All right, so I think that was our last question. So we might wrap up here, and I just want to thank everyone for attending today. We had a really great attendance and a really really interactive session today. So thank you all for your help. Have
Pleasure.
a great day. Bye.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.